Still on the endocrine system. In this video, we are going to focus on the gonads. Okay, before we begin, kindly support this channel by clicking on the like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and also do well to share this video to friends in other schools who may find this video very useful. Okay, now back to business. The gonads. Now, when we say the gonads, we are referring to the ovaries and then the testes. The ovaries and then the testes. So anytime you hear gonads, so we have the male gonads, which is the testes, and then the female gonads, which are the ovaries. Okay, good. Now the gonads, which is the ovaries in females, and then the testes in males. Okay, so we have two ovaries in females, and then we have two testes in males. Okay, now we say that the gonads are dual function glands. When we say a gland is a dual function gland, what it means is that it plays a role in the exocrine, or it has an exocrine function, and it also has an endocrine function, meaning through a certain way it produces certain secretions which are released into a duct or a tube. And then through another means, it also produces hormones which are released directly into the bloodstream. So anytime you hear that an organ is a dual function gland, that's the meaning. And it's something that you have to understand in anatomy. Dual function. Dual function. So when we see an organ performs dual function, meaning it produces a certain secretion into a duct, and then it also produces hormones which are released directly into the blood. So for the gonads, when we say the gonads are dual function glands, meaning it produces gametes. You know, the gametes are produced and they are released into a tube. Okay, the fallopian tube. So that is an exocrine function. And then it also produces sex hormones. Okay, and the sex hormones are released directly into the bloodstream. Then the sex hormones are mainly made of steroids. Okay, and this is the reason, for example, the sperm. You know, the sperm is produced by the male gonads, and they are released into what? Into a tube. Okay, so from the seminiferous tubules to the epididymis to the vas deferens, you know, it's going through more like a tube or a tract. You get, so that aspect makes it exocrine. The same thing applies to the female gonad, which is the ovaries. So the eggs are produced, they come through the fallopian tube and then down to the fallopian tube. Fertilization takes place down to the uterus. You get it? So that is going through a tubule or a tract, not directly into the blood. So that makes it exocrine. Is that okay? So when we say gonads are dual function glands, that is the meaning. Okay, and it's something that you need to understand in anatomy. Okay, now back to the gonads. So the ovaries are almond-shaped organs located on each side of the uterus. Okay, and the testis is also an oval-shaped organ housed in the scrotum. Okay, both of these gonads are about 4 to 5 centimeters long. Both of them are about 4 to 5 centimeters long. Now we are going to look at the ovarian cell types and the hormones they produce. So when you take, remember we've been learning from the previous endocrine organs or glands that anytime we take a particular endocrine organ, we have cells within that organ that produces the hormones. So for example, when we were looking at the pancreas, we have specific cells within the pancreas that produces specific hormones. The same thing applies to the gonads. So we are going to look at each of the gonads, the female gonad, which is the ovaries. Then we look at specific cells within the female gonads that produces hormones, based on which we can say it's an endocrine organ. Okay, so let's begin with the ovarian cell types. Then we look at the hormones that they produce. So the ovarian cell types, we have two of them here. We have the granulosa cells, and then we have the corpus luteum. The granulosa cells and the corpus luteum. So the granulosa cells actually secrete estradiol, or we call it estrogen. Okay, pre-ovulation, and then it is involved in menstrual regulation and secondary sexual traits. Okay, then we have the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum also secretes progesterone. Okay, it secretes progesterone that maintains pregnancy and estradiol post ovulation. Okay, so the ovarian cell types are two. So we have the granulosa cells that secrete estradiol, which is referred to as the estrogen, pre-ovulation or before ovulation, and that is involved in menstrual regulation and secondary sexual traits. Then we have the corpus luteum, which also secrete progesterone. Okay, and you know progesterone helps to maintain pregnancy. Okay, the same corpus luteum also plays a role in estrogen secretion pre-ovulation. Okay, so this is something that, post-ovulation, this is something that you have to know. Now, both of these cells also secrete inhibin, which inhibits the follicle-stimulating hormone to regulate ovulation. Okay, so both of these cells, the granulosa cell and the corpus luteum, they secrete inhibin. So in an exam, if you are asked the functions of granulosa cells in female gonad or the function of granulosa cells, you can mention that the granulosa cells secrete estrogen. Okay, pre-ovulation. The granulosa cells is also involved in menstrual regulation and female sexual traits. Okay, now when you are asked to mention the functions of the corpus luteum secretes progesterone, which maintains pregnancy. Okay, and it also secretes estrogen post ovulation. That's the functions of the and apart from that, you can also talk about the fact that both of these cells, both granulosa cell and then corpus luteum, they also secrete inhibin, which inhibits follicle stimulation hormone to regulate ovulation. Okay, and these functions are very important. Okay, especially the functions of these cells, they are very important in anatomy. Now let's look at the male gonads. So the male gonads, we are going to look at the testicular cell types and the hormones that they produce. Now the testicular cells, we have the interstitial or Leydig cells, and then we have the SERTOLI or subtentacular cells. These are the testicular cell types. Now the interstitial or Leydig cells, they produce testosterone, which regulates male traits, libido, and spermatogenesis. Okay, so the testicular cell types, we have the interstitial or Leydig cells. Interstitial or Leydig cells. The interstitial cells, they produce testosterone, which regulates male traits, libido, and spermatogenesis. Okay, the interstitial or Leydig cells, they produce testosterone, which regulates the male traits, libido, and spermatogenesis. Then we have the SERTOLI cells. Okay, the SERTOLI cells, they secrete inhibin to inhibit follicle stimulating hormone and stabilize sperm production. Okay, so the testicular cell types too, we have two. The interstitial or Leydig cells, they produce the testosterone, which regulates male sexual traits, libido, and spermatogenesis. Then we have the SERTOLI cells, which secrete inhibin to inhibit follicle stimulating hormone and stabilize sperm production. Now let's look at the functions of the gonadal hormones in general. So the gonadal hormones, we mentioned that, for example, the ovarian cell types, we spoke about estrogen, which is produced by the granulosa cells, which are involved in menstrual regulation. Okay, and then female secondary sexual traits. And then we spoke about the progesterone, which is produced by the corpus luteum, which helps to maintain pregnancy and also produce a portion or some percentage of estrogen post-ovulation. Okay, then the testicular cells, we mentioned testosterone, which is produced by the Leydig cells, which regulates male sexual traits, and then libido and spermatogenesis. Then we mentioned the inhibin, which is secreted by the SERTOLI cells. However, for the ovarian cells, we mentioned that both the granulosa cells and then the corpus luteum produce inhibin, which regulates or inhibits the follicle stimulation hormone to regulate ovulation. Now we are going to look at the gonadal hormones. The gonadal hormones, we have estrogen and progesterone, and then we have testosterone. Okay, so estrogen, progesterone for the male gonads, the female gonads, and then testosterone for the male gonads. Now, estrogen and progesterone, they help to develop the female reproductive organs. They also are responsible for regulating the menstrual cycle. They play a role in supporting pregnancy, and then they prepare the breast for lactation. Now, for testosterone promotes male genital organ development. They contribute in muscle mass development, bone growth, and then libido. Now, let's look at the organs or the target organs that these gonadal hormones, the organs that they target. So, one, they target reproductive organs. They also target bones, the breast, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and then secondary sexual structures. Okay, so these are the organs that the gonadal hormones target. Okay, and apart from that, the gonads and the hormones that they produce or release, okay, they are regulated using the feedback regulation. Okay, a feedback regulation. So both of the gonads participate in the negative feedback loops, which involves the hypothalamus, the anterior pituitary, okay, to regulate follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone secretions. Now, there are some unique features of these gonads. Okay, for example, the ovarian follicles make estrogen before ovulation, and the corpus luteum makes estrogen and progesterone after ovulation, and this happens in a certain cycle, and that is what contributes to the menstrual cycle, which we will learn under reproductive system. Now, after puberty, the testes keep producing testosterone and sperm continuously without a monthly cycle. Okay, good. So this is the testes and then the testicular cell types. Okay, so this is the testes. Okay, so this is how the testes looks like. So we have the semiferous tubules. These are the semiferous tubules. Okay, so we have the semiferous tubules. Okay, we have the outermost layer that we call the tunica vaginalis. So this is the outermost layer of the testis, the tunica vaginalis. Okay, then from the outermost layer, we have this. From the outermost layer, we have a cavity over there that we call the cavity of the tunica vaginalis. The cavity of the tunica vaginalis. Then from that layer, we come to the tunica albuginea. The tunica albuginea. The tunica albuginea. Okay. Then from the tunica albuginea, we have the semiferous tubule. So here is the semiferous tubule. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They form the semiferous tubules. The semiferous tubules. So the sperms are actually produced by the semiferous tubules. So when they are produced by the semiferous tubules, then they are channeled straight into the straight semiferous tubules. So these are the semiferous tubules. So they are produced here, then they go to the straight semiferous tubules. Okay, from the straight semiferous tubules, they go to the reti testis. Okay, reti testis. From the reti testis, they go to what we refer to as the efferent ductus. Then from the efferent ductus, they go to the epididymis. Okay, they go to the epididymis. Then in between the semiferous tubules, the space in between the semiferous tubules, we call it the septum. The septum. Okay, so the outermost layer of the testis is the tunica vaginalis. From the outermost layer, we go to another layer we call tunica albuginea. This layer. Okay, then in between the tunica albuginea and then tunica vaginalis, the space there is called, there is a cavity, we call it the cavity of the tunica vaginalis. The cavity of the tunica vaginalis. Okay, great. So we have the semiferous tubules, we have the septum, we have the straight semiferous tubules. Then from the straight semiferous tubules, we come to the reti testis. From the reti testis to the efferent ductus. And then from the efferent ductus, we come to the epididymis. And we learned that the epididymis also has some parts. It has the tail, and we have the body of the epididymis, and we have the head of the epididymis. Okay, then right from the epididymis is also connected to the vas deferens. The epididymis is connected to the vas deferens. Okay, so the sperm, when it's being produced, it comes to the epididymis for it to be stored here temporarily, and then for maturation. Okay, so the epididymis is more like a storage structure that stores the sperm temporarily or for some time. Okay, and also helps to mature the sperm. Okay, good. So in summary, we have the semiferous tubules. Okay, in summary, we have the semiferous tubules. Is that okay? So we have the semiferous tubules. We have the, in between the semiferous tubules, we have the septum. Okay, then the semiferous tubules is connected to the straight semiferous tubules. Then the straight semiferous tubules are connected to the reti testis. The reti testis are connected to the efferent ductus. And the efferent ductus are connected to the epididymis. And the epididymis is connected to the vas deferens. Is that okay? So basically that is it for the structure of the male testis. Is that okay? Now, apart from that, so this is how the cells, these are the cells. This diagram is showing the cells. So you see over here, we have the Leydig cells. Okay, the Leydig cells. So we mentioned the Leydig cells or the interstitial cells, and we have the SERTOLI cells. Okay, so in this diagram, you can see the Leydig cells, and this is the SERTOLI cells. Okay, so these Leydig cells, they produce the testosterone, which regulates the male sexual traits, libido, and spermatogen. Then the SERTOLI cells secrete, these SERTOLI cells secrete inhibin. You get it? Good. So these are the cells in the testis. Now, we mentioned that the gonads are under the regulation of the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis. Okay, so we have an axis that regulates the functions of the gonadal glands. So the hypothalamic-pituitary-gonadal axis. So you know the hypothalamus releases the gonadotropin releasing hormone. Okay, then this gonadotropin releasing hormone will go and stimulate the pituitary gland to produce luteinizing hormone and then follicle stimulating hormone. That is why we have plus. So you see the stimulus would be low testosterone levels. So when testosterone levels get too low, that is going to stimulate the hypothalamus to release gonadotropin releasing hormone, GnRH. Then the gonadotropin releasing hormone stimulates the pituitary gland to secrete luteinizing hormone and then follicle stimulating hormone. So you know luteinizing hormone would also stimulate the testis. Follicle stimulating hormone will also stimulate the testis to produce testosterone and inhibin. So it will stimulate the testis, specifically which cell in the testis? The Leydig cells, to produce the testosterone, and stimulate the SERTOLI cells when needed or necessary to also secrete inhibin. Okay, good. Now when the testis is stimulated to produce the testosterone, then we are going to now have increased levels of the testosterone, which is what we are looking for. Okay, so the increased level on the left side, the increased level of the testosterone would produce a negative feedback, okay, which will go and stop or signal the pituitary to stop producing the luteinizing hormone, so that we can have a balanced level of the hormone. At the same time, it can also rise to the top to go and stimulate the hypothalamus to stop producing or releasing the gonadotropin releasing hormone. Now, the inhibin on the right side can also, the inhibin on this side can also contribute to increased level of inhibin in the blood. and that one too will also send a negative feedback directly to only the pituitary gland to stop producing follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. So this is the feedback loop that the gonads use. The same thing applies to the female gonads. Now that means that if someone is having a problem with any of the part of this axis, it can create a lot of problems relating to conditions like infertility. Okay, so if let's assume your testosterone levels get very low and your hypothalamus is having a problem, you are not going to release gonadotropin releasing hormone, and therefore pituitary gland will not be stimulated to produce luteinizing hormone and then follicle stimulated. So such a person may suffer conditions like infertility. The person may be infertile. You get, if it's a female, the person may be infertile. The person may even experience amenorrhea. The person may have issues with the menstrual cycle and even experience amenorrhea. Because the hormones that are produced, some of the hormones plays a role in menstruation, like estrogen and progesterone. They play a role in your menstrual cycle. Okay, so you can end up even having amenorrhea or infertility. Okay, you can even end up having ovarian failure or testicular failure. Okay, or a condition that we call PCOS. Do you get it? So if someone is having a problem with the axis, hypothalamic-pituitary-gonadal axis, that person may end up having issues relating to fertility, testicular failure, ovarian failure, which may result in infertility issues, and then for females may result in amenorrhea. Is that okay? Amenorrhea. And this is something that you should know. Okay, so if you are having a problem with the hypothalamic-pituitary-gonadal axis, you can end up having infertility. You can end up having gonadal failure or ovarian failure, testicular failure. Okay, that is something that you have to know, and that can lead to issues like infertility. It can even affect your sexual development. Okay, there can be problems or conditions relating to, sexual development, sexual traits development. Is that okay? Or secondary sexual trait development or maturation. Is that okay? So this is something that you have to pay attention to. Now let's look at the ovarian cell types. So we have looked at the testicular or the testis and the testicular cell types. We mentioned the Leydig cells and then the SERTOLI cells. Now we are going to look at the ovarian cell types. Okay, so the ovarian cells, we have 3 cells over here we are going to talk about. So we have the THECA cells, we have the granulosa cells, and we have the corpus luteum. So we have the THECA cells, the granulosa cells, and then the corpus luteum. The THECA cells, the granulosa cells, and the corpus luteum. In an exams, okay, these cells can be given you and you can be asked to talk about the functions of these cells in an exams. The same thing applies to the testis and the testicular cells. These cells can be given to you and you can be asked to write the function, because these are pure anatomy areas or structures that you have to know. Okay, so the THECA cells will work alongside the granulosa cells in the ovarian follicle, and primarily they secrete androgens, which are converted to estrogens by the granulosa cells. They also play a key role in steroidogenesis and follicular development. Now the granulosa cells on the other hand, like we said earlier, they secrete estrogen pre-ovulation, and that is crucial for regulating the menstrual cycle and the development of secondary sexual characteristics. Now we have the corpus luteum. The corpus luteum forms after ovulation from remnants of the follicle, and they secrete progesterone, essential for maintaining early pregnancy, and estrogen during the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle. Okay, so these are the ovarian cells, the THECA cells, the granulosa cells, and then the corpus luteum. Okay, the THECA cells. So the THECA cells will work alongside the granulosa cells. Okay, in the ovarian follicle, and primarily they secrete androgens. But then these androgens at a point can also be converted to estrogens by the granulosa cells, and they also play a role. The THECA cells also play a role in steroidogenesis and follicular development. Okay, now the granulosa cells, on the other hand, secrete a form of estrogen before ovulation, and that is crucial for regulating menstrual cycle and then the female secondary sexual characteristics. And the corpus luteum also form after ovulation. Okay, from the remnant of the follicle, they secrete progesterone, essential for maintaining early pregnancy, and estradiol during the luteal phase of the menstrual cycle. So let's look at the cell. So we have the corpus luteum. This is the corpus luteum. Okay, from the remnants of the follicles. So this is the corpus luteum. Okay, now let's look for the THECA cells. These are the THECA cells. Okay, these are the cells that work alongside the granulosa cells. Okay, so these are the THECA cells. Is that okay? And this THECA, so this is the granulosa cell. This cell is what we refer to as the granulosa cell. So you see the THECA cells are just closer to the granulosa cells. So the THECA cells, all they do is the THECA cells that work alongside the granulosa cells. Looking at how close they are to the granulosa cells in the diagram. Okay, so they work to secrete androgens, but then the androgens can be converted back to what? Back to estrogen by the granulosa cells. And apart from that, the THECA cells also plays a role in steroidogenesis, trying to convert or trying to make or form steroids, because you know the gonadal hormones, they are made up of steroids. So the THECA cells plays a role in trying to form or make or produce steroids. Is that okay? Great. And that is how come they work hand in hand with the granulosa cells. Okay, so these are the cells in the ovarian or the female gonads. Okay, now let's look at the clinical significance of the gonadal gland anatomy. Why is it important for you to understand the gonads? Why is it important? Okay, it's important for you to understand the gonads as a health professional, a nurse or a midwife. It will enhance your understanding of fertility issues and then gametogenesis. Okay, because you know the ovaries produce oocytes. For example, the ovaries produce oocytes, and these oocytes secrete estrogen, and also it produces oocytes and also plays a role in the secretion of estrogen and progesterone. So you know we mentioned the granulosa cells and then the corpus luteum. You know they play a role in the secretion of estrogen and progesterone, which are essential for ovulation. Okay, and then endometrial receptivity. Now the testes, on the other hand, also plays a role in the production of sperm, like the Leydig cells. Okay, and then also in the production of testosterone, is that which are vital for spermatogenesis and libido. So that should tell you that if someone is having a problem anywhere in the gonadal axis, that person can even have problems with libido. Do you get it? The person can even have issues relating to sexual arousal. You get, all these are things that you have to be mindful of in exams, especially the clinical significance. Is that okay? Good. So like I said earlier, menstrual cycle regulation. If someone is having a problem with the hypothalamic-pituitary-gonadal axis, it can disrupt the functions of the ovary, the functions of the test. The person can get testicular failure, ovarian failure, and that can result in infertility for male and female. It can also result in amenorrhea, okay, for the females. Okay, then the obstetric relevance. For example, so for you as a midwife, you should know things relating to the gonads. For example, the corpus luteum in the ovary maintains early pregnancy via progesterone until placenta or the placenta hormones comes to take over. Secondly, the testicular hormones affect fetal sexual differentiation and anomalies. You get it? And then, for example, if someone is having problems with the testicular hormones, the person can end up with conditions like cryptorchidism. Okay, that is failure of the testes to descend into the scrotum after birth. Okay, now estrogen and progesterone from the ovaries prepare the breast for lactation, while their postpartum drop enables prolactin-driven milk production. Anatomical and hormonal interplay is very key when it comes to, how the gonads or the gonadal glands and their hormones function. In terms of pharmacologic targeting, hormonal contraceptive, ovulation inducers, okay, and anti-androgen exploit gonadal anatomy and the feedback system. Most of these hormonal therapies like contraceptives, most of these, for example, the anti-androgen exploits, they use gonadal anatomy and physiology. They study the feedback system. Their mechanism revolves around the feedback system for the hypothalamic-pituitary-gonadal axis. You get it? For them to function properly. Okay, we have surgical and imaging consideration. Okay, we have surgical and imaging consideration. So if someone comes with a problem relating to fertility, amenorrhea, we may do certain imaging, we may request certain diagnostic investigation. If you're a health professional, your understanding of the gonadal gland anatomy can help you, to understand that, okay, if someone comes with problems relating to fertility issues, ovarian failure, okay, hormonal issues, then you may request for certain lab to know how these structures are functioning or the nature of these structures, okay, so that you can better make a very good diagnosis or a very accurate diagnosis. Okay, now it will also help you to understand endocrine disorders. Okay, it will help you to understand endocrine disorders like disorders of the ovary, the testes, or testicular disorders. Is that okay? And then it will also help you to understand the variations. There are variations between the male gonads and then the female gonads. Is that okay? To help you to know the variations so that you know how to properly conduct an assessment. So when you're assessing a female with an issue relating to the gonads, you know which kind of assessment or how you are going to do the assessment properly. Okay, so this brings us to the end of the gonads. Okay, so in summary, when we say the gonads, we are referring to the ovaries and then the testes. Now, one key thing you need to remember over here is that with the gonads, we say they have dual functions, meaning they play a role in endocrine system and then they also play a role in the exocrine, they have an exocrine function. Let's put it that way. So with the exocrine function has got to do with the gametes that are secreted into tubules or tracts. And then the endocrine function has got to do with the hormones that they secrete. Okay, that is what makes it an endocrine gland. The hormones that they secrete and release directly into the blood. And that is something that you should always have in the mind. That if you say an organ performs a dual function, if you say the pancreas performs dual function, that's the meaning. Meaning it has an exocrine function and it also has an endocrine function. That is something that you have to know. So we have the ovarian cell types, which are the ovarian cell type, which are the granulosa cells and the corpus luteum. Then we have the testicular cell types and the hormones they produce. Testicular cell types, we have the interstitial or Leydig cells, and we have the SERTOLI cells. And then we have the functions of the gonadal hormones. So the gonadal hormones, we have estrogen, progesterone, and we have testosterone, and we have those functions. And the hormones also have target organs. So the target organs like reproductive organs, bones, breast, the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and then the secondary sexual structures. Is that okay? So these are the gonads. Is that okay? And then you also have to understand the hypothalamic-pituitary-gonadal axis and conditions that would occur if someone is having a problem anywhere on the axis. So if someone is having a problem anywhere on the axis, the person can end up having ovarian failure, testicular failure, conditions like PCOS, conditions like amenorrhea or infertility. These are conditions that can occur. The person can even have issues relating to libido and then sperm production. Okay, issues relating to libido and sperm production or sexual arousal. The person can even have issues relating to maturation of sexual characteristics. Do you get it? Or problems with sexual maturation or sexual characteristics. Okay, so that is something that you have to pay attention to. Is that okay? All right, so I think we will end here for the gonadal gland anatomy. Kindly subscribe to the channel. Do well to click on the like button, and also make sure you make an attempt to share content on this channel to friends who may find informations on the channel very useful. Okay, all the best.